So Chris Rakedahl sends the following. Please share my gratitude with folks and an appeal to help. Unless we get 3 solid votes on the BNR, that is the Board of Natural Resources, it will be hard to change things. Dave Up the Grove is number 1. Governor Ferguson's appointment will be number 2, but I have to retain my OSPI seat to be the 3rd vote on that 6-member board. So yet another reason, in addition to his endorsement by the Washington Education Association, to reelect Chris Rakedahl. And by the way, I am a teacher and I'm a member of the Washington Education Association, and I approve this message. Dakin, let me find you on the screen and I will spotlight you and you can do your thing. There you are. Okay, go ahead.
Great. I'm assuming this is just a quick couple minutes of candidate intro, or?
Yes, it is. It is technically 4 minutes.
4 minutes. All right, no problem. I can stay under that. Deacon Letnich. I am running for House Rep in the 18th LD, position 1. My opponent will be Stephanie McClintock. I'm a lifetime Clark County resident and a 10-year organizer for the Laborers Union. The last 5 of those years, I've also worked as the Assistant Political and Legislative Director for the District Council of Laborers in Washington State, and really decided to get involved and run for office here based on the last 2 years of my work in Olympia. 2 years ago, we prioritized 5272, which was our speed zone camera bill. Our members kept getting killed at work, and we were looking for a way to deter that behavior from drivers. And so we reached across the aisle, got, I think, effective legislation written and passed in a single session, and should see those cameras in place the next construction season after a little bit of a hiccup with some vendors. Last year, our priority was House Bill 2266, which was our safe and sanitary protections. Very similar story. Started off across the aisle to make sure that we were writing good legislation for the people of Washington State. Passed that bill almost unanimously in a single session, and I think it really breaks down some of the barriers to retention and recruitment of our female workforce in the construction trades. And so happy to see that passed in a single session. Moving forward, I'm really prioritizing infrastructure, childcare, and making sure education is funded, which are kind of 3 real gimme policies, but I really believe in funding our infrastructure and making sure that we have more and more affordable access to childcare in our communities. I know that as a young dad and husband, we often were reliant on last minute Hail Mary phone calls to older sisters of high school friends because there are very few, if any, places available at 5 a.m. to drop off your child for a day of childcare when you need to be at a concrete pour at 6 a.m. And conversely, it's also difficult to turn down overtime because if you're not at your childcare for pickup on time at 5, you're fined or removed from the program, or in some instances, you can have law enforcement called on you for child neglect. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in our childcare system as far as locations, funding, access. There's a lot we can do, and I want to be part of that solution. And yeah, I'm a environmental supporting labor supporter, which is tough to do. I know it's a fine line to want to build things safely and locally with good wages that also are mindful of our environment and our climate. And it's a narrow lane to walk down, but I really try my best to be a steward of the environment while still promoting the trades and work opportunities for our members. And so happy to be invited here today and share my message, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deacon. Folks, that's what a 3-minute presentation looks like. I think because we got going a little late, Deacon, I think we're not going to have time for questions, but we will be using our Facebook page in case anybody is interested in doing any discussion. And there's a link to that in both the candidate email and the newsletter email that the people received. So I think we're going to move on. Thank you very much for being here, Deacon. Thanks for making the time. I know everyone is really busy.
Great. I really appreciate it. And thanks for letting me kick things off with a good example.
That's exactly right.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay. Okay. Um, uh, Next up is we're going to go with Liz Lovelet, and this list was organized by Jeff Berner, who's put an extraordinary amount of time into making this event happen. And so we're organized more or less in LD number order. And and also based on the candidate schedules. So Liz, you're up next. The
Thank
floor is
you.
yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me out here tonight and for considering my endorsement. My name is Liz Lovelet. I am the senator from the 40th Legislative District. I live in Anacortes and I cover the San Juan Islands and western portions of Skagit and Whatcom County. I started out as a record store owner that got involved in politics, and then I ran successfully for the Anacortes City Council, where I served for 5 years before being appointed to the legislature in 2019. I currently chair local government, land use, and tribal affairs. I am the vice chair of energy, environment, and technology, and I serve on transportation, where I lead on ferry issues. Chances are, if there was an environmental or climate bill that went through the legislature in the last 6 years, I probably had an opportunity to work on the process of either helping with the mandatory language, stakeholdering support, advocacy, and refinement along the way. And I want to give a shout out because I do know that Joe Fitzgibbon is on this call as well as a champion for environmental issues in the House. I've been proud to work with him on many issues through the years. So I live here in Anacortes at the intersection of the 4 major refineries and the last of the whales. And much like candidate Deacon, we're looking at this scenario where we need to make sure that we are transforming our economy and our workforce to keep an eye on the future and make sure that we are building the resilient communities that our grandchildren's grandchildren can rely on. Clean air, clean water, density around transit, ensuring tribal sovereignty and the ability to uphold treaty rights and ensure proper consultation processes, and protecting cultural resources are all center to the work that we do in the legislature. I'm really proud to have already earned the endorsement of Washington Conservation Action, the Sierra Club, numerous labor organizations throughout the full spectrum of our workforce, disability advocates, and Equal Rights Washington. There's many of our tribes. There's been a lot of support so far to continue my candidacy, and I hope to earn yours as well. Things in the past that I've been really passionate about getting taken care of, much of which has to do with making sure that our natural areas are protected, that we're remediating the natural environments, that we're planning the transportation infrastructure that is going to get us there. All the fun things like making sure our stormwater is being dealt with, microplastics, recently PFAS contamination in a water system out in the San Juans. So it's a combination of both policy decisions, advocacy, budget decisions, and making sure that we're being accountable to communities as we move our state forward. I've had the opportunity to be with our national leaders on a global scale, and Washington is the envy of much of the world because of the incredible climate policy that we have been able to achieve, specifically in the last decade, but very specifically in the last 5 years. I'm proud to have been able to take part in all of that and represent my district and the state for our nation and our world around making sure that we're creating a viable future moving forward. So thank you very much for having me here tonight, and I hope you get lots of good candidates out here to endorse.
Thank you so much, Liz. Okay. Tiffany Mitchell is up next. Tiffany is actually out canvassing tonight.
Yeah.
And Greg Nance, I saw Greg Nance come in. Greg Nance is on deck and Victoria Hunt is on the fence. So go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for having me here this evening. I apologize if it's a little noisy. I am out canvassing. I stopped for a moment so that I could zoom in here and, be able to have my opportunity to say thank you. I have already been endorsed, but I did want to make sure that I got to pop in and say hello and how proud I am to be an environmental candidate, and really want to focus in on how we, as was previously said by another candidate, how we walk that fine line. And running for Legislative District 26 in position 2 as a state representative, I know I have a real hard road ahead of me. The seat is currently held by a state representative who's a Republican who has voted on no on every single environmental bill when it comes to climate change that has come across the legislature since she's been there. And it's a real frustrating thing that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to turn over. I have a little bit of history myself in the legislature, but in Oregon, I actually served as a state representative down there in 2019 when we attempted to pass our own similar version to the Climate Commitment Act. It was the large bill that caused Republican senators to walk out that year. And before they did that, I had the opportunity to vote yes on that bill in the House. And actually almost got recalled over it because there were a bunch of very anti-climate folks in the district who didn't like that bill, and they thankfully were not able to even get enough ballot signatures on their petition to be able to get it on the ballot. So I think that really speaks a lot to my willingness to take hard votes that are the right thing to do. And I look very much forward to hopefully being able to have an opportunity to do that for Washingtonians, and to make sure, as others have said this evening, to really be a voice for our environment, and for making sure that we are also bringing along everyone else too when it comes to having jobs that really support a vibrant and thriving economy, but that also support our environmental concerns as well. So thank you again so much for having me, and I will say goodnight because I got to go knock on some more doors. Got a race to win. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good luck and happy canvassing. Jeff, how are you doing? Are you ready to take this show over here, or what do you want to do?
Well, I've been monitoring the emails and getting phone calls. I think it might be better for you to continue to take that on, just because there might be a need for me to coordinate with candidates that are trying to get in.
Very well. Okay, then. Next up is Greg Nance, LD 23, position 2. Victoria Hunt is on deck, and Patrick Miller is on the fence. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Steve, and really appreciate everyone being here and the work that we make happen day in and day out. It's so vital, especially in this moment with the Climate Commitment Act coming to the ballot and with a lot of climate denialism across the board. So I so appreciate us standing strong and standing together. As Steve mentioned, my name is Greg Nance. I proudly represent the 23rd Legislative District. That's Kitsap from Bremerton up to Hansville on the peninsula. And I grew up here on Suquamish ancestral lands. And so for me, my commitment to the environment is deeply personal, and it's a lifetime commitment. I did my first beach walk with the Suquamish elder when I was in first grade, where we picked up plastic off the beach. And I learned right then, every one of us can make a difference. The actions of every one of us absolutely matters. From that moment forward, I've thought about ways to get my friends involved. As a sixth grader, I raised chum salmon eggs in science class. The chum now returning to the Puget Sound are 7th generation of those I helped raise with my classmates. We are about to delist summer chum off the endangered species list. And that shows what we can do with conservationists, tribes, government leaders, and even little school kids being part of a solution. That inspires my climate environmental program and agenda moving forward. I'm going to be championing kelp in the classroom to get more kids involved with kelp and with salmon rearing and manila clams and Olympia oysters. We want to make this hands-on so young people learn that they can make a difference, and we need them to step up to make a difference. That's one of my big focus areas in the legislature as the newest member of the House of Representatives, is getting kids directly plugged in. Professionally, I work in youth mental health, and the climate crisis that's befalling us is a major source of anxiety for young people. We have found both in the research and then anecdotally in my own work, when we get kids involved, great things happen. We learn that we're part of the solution. And so that's going to be a big focus of mine. I'm aiming to get on the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee and aim to work this and to continue building it out and build momentum with legendary environmental leaders like the Puget Sound Restoration Fund, and with the endorsement and support of the Suquamish Tribe, Port Gamble Sklallam Tribe, Jamestown Sklallam, the Tulalip. We're doing this in partnership. One of the biggest things I'm eager to bite into is the first comprehensive study of our Dungeness crab fishery and what's caused the 5 die-offs that we've experienced. We know warming has a part of this, acidification has part of it, European green crab invasion is part of it. We need to dig deep and really have the academic horsepower behind it so we can get the federal and state funding to protect our largest fishery and a vital component to Puget Sound and Salish Sea's future. In addition to my environmental work on agriculture and natural resources, aiming to continue being a leader in the House on ferry issues. I represent Bremerton, Bainbridge, and Kingston. That's 3 ferry-served communities. We have a lot of wood to chop on the future of passenger-only ferries, where I will continue to champion for funding there. We'll continue to champion for funding for public transit and the electrification of our hybrid electric vessels as well. I want to be an ally there. Step by step, we're going to do it together. I am honored to have the support of Washington Conservation Action. I'd love to add Environment and Climate Caucus to the mix. We've got so much good work to do together, and I'd be honored to do it together. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. I may have just figured out how to operate the timer. Can everyone see a timer on the right sidebar there? No?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, I'll continue to figure out while our speakers are speaking. Next up, we have Victoria Hunt from LD5, position 1. Patrick Miller is on deck, and Clyde Shavers is on the fence. Go ahead, Victoria.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victoria Hunt, and I am running for state representative to serve the 5th legislative district. This is Issaquah all the way to Enumclaw, and then parts of North Bend, Snoqualmie, and everything in between. I am an environmental scientist, as well as a 3rd-term Issaquah City Council member and a mom of 2 young children that are in elementary school. I have a PhD in ecology and a deep love of the environment. I, in my city council role, have championed affordable housing, public safety, and especially environmental stewardship. Specifically, Issaquah has been in the leadership role on PFAS remediation, as well as open space protection and salmon conservation. In Olympia, I hope to build on this record and continue to lead on community priorities that I've heard knocking on doors throughout the district. And those include K-12 education funding, transportation and transit investments, especially for folks that choose not cars, affordable childcare, and housing to meet our community's needs, as well as providing behavioral health and mental health services for folks. In my current professional capacity, I'm the chief data officer for a company that helps cities across the nation develop their greenhouse gas emissions inventories. And so through this, I understand the huge amount of infrastructure that we will need to invest in to meet our current goals for clean energy and to make a transition to a more sustainable environment. And I very much want to bring this professional experience to the legislature. Additionally, before I was on the city council, I was urban planning department at University of Washington as affiliate faculty and was learning about the impacts of the urban development patterns on our wildlands and the urban wildland interface. And I have previously worked as well for Breakthrough Energy, looking at the improvements we need to make to our electric grid as we add more renewable energy into our energy mix, which we very much need to do in the next years. And I very much want to make sure that I can bring that experience to the legislature so we can have a clean energy transition. I am very honored to have won a competitive primary and be endorsed by the 5th Legislative District Democrats, as well as firefighters, Washington Conservation Action, Washington State Labor Council, the Snoqualmie Tribe, King County Councilmember Sarah Perry, Representatives Bill Ramos and Lisa Callan, and the mayors of Issaquah, Maple Valley, Snoqualmie, Sammamish, and North Bend, all of which are in district cities. I am further endorsed by Attorney General Bob Ferguson, Congresswoman Kim Schreier, many unions across the district, and Democratic groups across the state. I'm running for an open seat, and I'm running in a very competitive district. I am running against a former Republican state legislator, Mark Hargrove, and I would be extremely honored to earn your endorsement so I can be an environmental champion for this district. Thank you for considering my request, and please reach out at any time at victoria@victoriahunt.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Next up, we have Patrick Miller from LD9, position 1. Clyde Shavers is on deck, and Linda Gunchevsky is on the fence. So go ahead, Patrick.
Hi there, and I apologize for the lighting. I was just at a fundraiser for another candidate that was outdoors, so here I am. But hi, my name is Patrick Miller. I'm running for state representative in the 9th LD, which is basically the very south end of Spokane, all the way down to Oregon. So large rural area with a couple college towns, but largely, agrarian economy here. So as far as why I'm running, I've got a 10-year incumbent that is on the Energy Committee and is well funded by the oil and gas industries. And I have not generally agreed with the direction things have been going and the messages that she's been sending to our communities. So I've really wanted to get involved and try to, be a voice for these agricultural areas that have largely been overlooked, but still need to be part of the conversation and still need to be part of a green transition, especially as it's impacting their crops. I think they're starting to come around to the fact that a lot of this is more real than they were led to believe by some of their news sources. So that was my big reason for stepping up. Other issues that are of key importance to the region include housing, as I've heard from a lot of the other candidates, childcare and other critical services. There are a lot of service deserts here, including childcare, but groceries. There's even towns without gas stations anymore or charging stations. And as I'm driving around, there are parts of the district I can't reliably reach with an electric vehicle right now. So those are some areas that I'd like to see improvement in our transportation infrastructure or electrification infrastructure. There's also a lot of concern with the local community involving their dams, and so trying to work with them on ways to replace those with better infrastructure than they have today. I'm working with as many of the local progressive and democratic and environmentally minded organizations that exist out here in rural Washington, rural southeastern Washington, but that's few and far between in some cases. So that's why I'm looking forward to working with some that are more statewide, such as yourself.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay. And Patrick's legislative district, I don't know if he mentioned it, is indeed southeastern Washington, kind of ground zero for the Lower Snake River Dam issue.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Clyde Shavers of LD10, position 1. Linda Gunchevsky is on deck, and Marla Keithler is on the fence. So go ahead, Clyde.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. I apologize for the background. Being in my car, it's quite a busy time frame, obviously, during this time. But yeah, so my name is Clyde Shavers. I'm the representative from the 10th Legislative District. So all of Island County, parts of Skagit, and parts of Snohomish County as well. So I just finished my first term as a 10th rep. I did a lot of exciting things, including bills on environmental protection. My philosophy has always been to solve tomorrow's problems today. But in terms of climate change, in terms of environmental protection, this crisis is a crisis of today that we need to solve yesterday. And so our office has been really working hard on pushing the envelope, finding new innovative ways to tackle this climate change problem, this crisis. So one of the bills that we introduced, we drafted and passed, very proud of, is the first major fusion technology clean energy bill that was signed after the session this year by the governor. Really proud of kind of pushing for this new innovative technology. I believe that with fusion technology, as we develop, as we implement this in Washington State, and as we lead in this new clean energy technology, we will finally solve the riddle of climate change. That is why we are all here today, to find those solutions, to bring more energy, clean energy options to our portfolio. Really looking forward to even pushing the envelope in terms of introducing or engaging the agricultural community in our environmental protection discussion, in our deliberation. My community, my district is quite rural, and we need to make sure that everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what background they come from, including our farmers and farm workers, need to be at the table when we talk about how do we ensure that everybody is involved, that no community is left behind or forgotten towards ensuring completely zero emission, clean future. So we've been working on bills that would provide tax incentives for farmers that are implementing regenerative, sustainable agricultural practices, for example. How do we ensure that the land that we use to grow our food is used responsibly? And equally important, how can we ensure that families and generations can continue to farm that land in a responsible, environmentally friendly way? I think if we can, and when we get the agricultural community to the table to really engage with us, we can change the discussion on climate change and really push the ball even further. And finally, I am so excited to continue supporting, engaging, voting yes on environmental protection bills that are so critical for the future of our economy, for the future of our people, and for the state, and to be frank, for the nation. And so looking forward to really working closely with our colleagues and saying yes to those bills that they pursue, that I can support, and really ensuring that our conversation today, our conversation tomorrow, and all the conversations in the future actually make a meaningful impact in the legislation and the policy discussions that we pursue for this upcoming 2025 legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. And thanks especially for parking. Okay.
For sure.
Okay. Next up, we have Linda Ganshevsky from LD16, position 1. Martha Keithler is on deck, and John Zingale is on the fence. Go ahead, please, Linda.
Thank you all for having me tonight. I'm honored to be here. Really honored to be here. Environmental issues are very important to me. My name is Dr. Linda Ganshevsky. I'm a retired ophthalmologist from Walla Walla, Washington. I'm running for the representative for the 16th Legislative District. The 16th LD was just redistricted. It runs from Waitsburg, which is just a little bit east of here, all the way to Benton City. So we've got a very large area. We are adjacent to the Snake River. So the Snake River dams are a very critical issue for the community. A little bit more about me. I've practiced medicine in Walla Walla for over 25 years. I've taken care of thousands of patients. I've been an ophthalmic surgeon. I also have a undergraduate degree in engineering. So I have a very strong interest in science and love science, and I do love learning more and discussing energy. My reason for running is I believe that if we are smart and we work together, we can have a brighter and healthier future. I'm also running because I believe our incumbent, who's a 4-year incumbent, Mark Clicker, I think he's just been a terrible representative for our district. He's very right-wing extremist and backwards thinking. So I can't agree with anything he really stands for. So I felt it that I needed to challenge him. I've got a leadership background as the first woman elected as president of the Washington Academy of Eye Physicians and Surgeons. I was also on the board of trustees for the Washington Medical Association. Locally, I was on the board of trustees for the YMCA. I'm a Paul Harris Fellow for Rotary. I'm politically active and have started a grassroots organization in my community called the Network of Exceptional Women. My priorities, if elected, will be healthcare. I would be the only medical doctor in the legislature if I'm elected. Housing, childcare and education, and transition into climate resilience. I do own 3 electric vehicles. Our family does not drive combustion engines anymore. We have solar panels on the house. We also have a backup battery system to generate power. So I am committed to green energy and the green energy transition. I understand what a huge challenge it will be. I think I would be a great bridge and communicator to try and explain the necessity of this to our local community. In addition to that, I need to express how important farming and agriculture is to the economy here and the livelihood. Wheat farming is the economic cornerstone of our economy. So we really do need a way to make sure that our energy transition takes care of our farming community. And I believe I can make that connection to them. The one thing I can say for sure about the farmers is that they're practical people. And if we can demonstrate to them the necessity of changing to a green economy, I think they'll go for it. And I think they've been denied that by the current representative, Mark Clicker, who has been against things like agrivoltaics and refusing to cite any green energy, wind and solar projects in our region. He takes a large amount of money from fossil fuel companies. I think I would be a much better representative for climate change, the environment, and the economy. I think he's just being really short-sighted by not understanding what the opportunity is in southeastern Washington for
Thank
a
you,
green
Linda.
transition.
Thank
I'm
you.
over. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Very small. My apologies.
No problem. I am putting in the chat a link to a map of legislative districts. I know I still don't know where most of them are, although I mostly have trouble with the tiny ones in the Puget Sound region, not the ones like where Linda is. Next up is Marla Keithler. She is in LD 17, wherever that is, and John Zingale is on deck, followed by Bob Lyle on the fence, and I got to go one further. Adam Birnbaum is in the hole. So go ahead, Marla.
Hi, Steve, and thank you as we continue this road tour across the state. My name is Marla Kiefler. I am down here in the 17th district, which is in Southwest Washington, and running for the state Senate seat. A little bit about myself. I'm a Pacific Northwest native, born here in Washington, and then went to the East Coast in my early adult years to pursue a career in sports television, which kept me there for 15 years when my husband and I decided to return to the mountains and small town environment we both loved growing up. We decided to make white salmon our home. It also signaled a career shift for me. And while I pursued work supporting communications at local nonprofit organizations, I also ran for city council. And I'm now entering this race with 8 years of elected experience, entering right now my second term as the nonpartisan mayor for White Salmon, Washington. I'm running for this position because I believe strongly that we need legislators at the state level that have experience working to deliver change on the ground. And I believe my nonpartisan legislative and executive background is a strength in a newly drawn district that, based on primary results, is ready and open to new leadership. Issues that are important to me include addressing housing through sustainable urban planning, addressing the backlog of infrastructure projects in a way that creates resilient systems for the future, and social issues such as childcare and education access for all. I'm asking for your endorsement because I firmly believe in your mission to assure that environmental issues, particularly climate disruption, is reflected in policies, and I intend to do so once elected. While I've been mayor, I'm proud to say that for a small rural town, we've actually passed a climate resolution and are implementing White Salmon's first climate action emissions reduction plan. That experience has also opened my eyes to the differences when trying to bring forward change in some of our smaller communities, and I think there's opportunity there for innovative policy solutions that open up some funding to support those efforts. Under my leadership, we also received a state ZAP grant to implement a rural EV car share program that has been one of the more widely used ones in both Washington State and Oregon. And we've been aggressive in seeking and receiving funding for many projects to modernize our aging water infrastructure. And from that experience, I am passionate about the realization that communicating better about the improvements in aging infrastructure, especially as it relates to water, is a significant part, I believe, of creating a resilient future for Washington State. But it's also made me acutely aware of those varying needs across our communities and how climate action in rural Washington can look different. I mentioned the aging infrastructure, but I also think streets is another area where we could be thinking about how to incentivize improvements that also create more multimodal access and encouraging person-level habit shifts, which is something we've really tried to do in our community as we've been undertaking this work. Again, this district, I touched on a little bit of it earlier, but hearing also the acknowledgement that maybe not everyone's familiar, this spans from East Vancouver all the way to Goldendale, Washington. So really a broad range of communities. And I do believe that my experience trying to make change and work on these issues at a local level is an asset now, coming in and being able to address some of the policy short changes that we've seen, and encourage for the opportunity to get to Olympia and make some of that work, hopefully inform future policies. So thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Marla. Next up is John Zingale from LD 18, position 2. We have Bob Lyle on deck, Adam Birnbaum on the fence, and Cameron Severance has moved into the in the hole position. So go ahead, please, John.
All right. Thank you all for having me tonight. Yeah, I was out canvassing a little bit earlier as well. My name is John Zingale. I'm a middle school social studies teacher for the last, this is my 12th year. It's an honor to already have earned your endorsement way back in May. Actually, aside from my teachers union and the Washington Conservation Voters, you were right there supporting me this election cycle, just like you did 2 years ago. We came really close to flipping the 18th blue for the first time in 30 years last election cycle when I was up on election night. And unfortunately, I think it was Saturday later on that during the week that it flipped and Stephanie McClintock won. This year, Greg Cheney decided to run for the Senate, so there was an open seat in position 2. And just like I teach my students that failure is just your first attempt in learning, I put myself out there again. We have great name recognition, have hit the ground running. Both Marla, myself, and Terry Niles and Adrian Cortez down here in Southwest Washington have done a tremendous job. We're really looking forward to bringing some help to Monica, Sharon, and Annette, who have been holding down the fort for Southwest Washington for quite a number of years. I'm going to honor your time. Look, I'm a big environmentalist. I'm doing this for the kids. Too many times I'm having to look them in the eyes and they're asking me why adults haven't been keeping up their fair share of things. When we write letters to our senators and Congress people, climate change is the number one. That and gun rights are the gun violence is the number one and number two things they write about. I've got a 7 and a 10-year-old in my house. I want to make sure that not only they have a future to live in, but everyone else does, and future generations. Washington is rapidly changing. Climate change is not coming. Climate change is here. Every year we're getting forest fires, even in Vancouver, and the ash is falling on our houses. And so we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect our environment. I'm proud that Washington State has been a leader in the United States and kind of globally as well with this. I look forward to pushing these things forward when we're thinking about building our new structures, because look, people keep moving here more and more. It's a great place to live. Washington is an incredible place to live. So we're going to need to fix our housing crisis, especially here in Southwest Washington. So thinking about incentivizing builders to build roofs that are pointed more south and west so that when we put solar panels on, they're going to be more efficient. Putting in the electric car charging, the electricity for that right now. I grew up in Illinois where everyone had a basement too. Now that was because of tornadoes, but what I also learned is it allowed me to, as a homeowner, expand my living without expanding my footprint. And it also lowered all of my utility bills because, things were below ground and things. So I'm a 4-time state history teacher of the year. I want to think innovatively to help with these solutions. And I'm just going to end it there, and we'll move Taylor swiftly through this.
Spoken like a true middle school teacher. John Zingali, thank you. Next up, we have Bob Lyall from LD22. Adam Birnbaum is on deck. Cameron Severance is on the fence, and Kenneth King is in the hole. Go ahead, please, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here tonight. And I respectfully would like to correct you. My name doesn't have an L in it. It's Bob IL. It's IYALL. So, but I'm very happy to be here. And I am a proud Nisqually tribal elder. I'm a lifelong resident of Thurston County, and I'm a candidate for the Washington State Senate in LD22. As a 45-year retired member of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, and in my current role as CEO of the Medicine Creek Enterprise Corporation, and also I was elected 2.5 years ago by the people of Thurston County to be a commissioner at the Port of Olympia. And through those roles, I have gained an understanding of the challenges and the opportunities that we face here in Washington State. I am committed to our natural resources, by creating sustainable practices that preserve our environment for our future generations. Those future generations, protecting that legacy for the future generations, it's a reflection of my values and our values that reflect my Native heritage. Billy Frank Jr. was a friend of mine, and he often refers to the salmon as a barometer for the health of the environment. And I'm committed to advocate for and support comprehensive salmon recovery efforts to restore salmon populations to sustainable levels, recognizing their vital role in our ecosystem and in our cultural heritage. As CEO of the Medicine Creek Enterprise Corporation, which, by the way, is the corporation that is owned by the Nisqually Indian tribe. So my role is I oversee day-to-day operations of our tribe's for-profit businesses. As a CEO, I created a policy approved by our board of directors, our corporate social responsibility policy. And that policy commits us to implementing projects that's going to reduce our carbon footprint and implement renewable and alternative energy sources for our facilities. We've done projects like adding solar panels to our corporate building, and we're adding EV charging stations to our C-stores and other properties. At the Port of Olympia, I've supported efforts to kick off a major cleanup project in Butt Inlet, a project that will remove contaminated sediments from the bay that was sediments that were contaminated from legacy industry on the area. This project is going to go hand in hand with the Deschutes Estuary project. And that's the project that the Department of Enterprise Services is heading up. That's going to remove the Fifth Avenue Dam in Olympia and return Capitol Lake to its natural form as an estuary. Another project that I'm deeply committed to is the I-5 project at the Nisqually River. This is not just a transportation project, but this is an environmental project that's going to allow the river to take its natural course. And taking its natural course and allowing the environment to go naturally is going to improve our salmon habitat for the Nisqually River. And all of those projects are in South Puget Sound right now, where the salmon runs are still critically low, and we are, it's vitally important that we improve their habitat so that they can make a recovery to sustainable levels. Personally, I have pledged any funds that I earn as a commissioner at the Port of Olympia. I donate all of those funds to charitable and nonprofit organizations. I focus on educational and environmental organizations. Environmental organizations like Sierra Club. I'm a member of the Sierra Club. I make substantial contributions to the Nisqually River Council and the Nisqually Land Trust, and as well as other environmental organizations.
Thank you.
And I'm here today asking for your endorsement, so I can advocate for these and other important environmental projects in our state Senate. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Bob. Next up is Adam Birnbaum from LD24. Cameron Severns is on deck. Kenneth King is on the fence, and Devin Rydell Kelly is in the hole. Please go ahead, Adam. And
hello, sorry about that. I've stepped out of a different endorsement meeting, so I'm in the parking lot of the Tri-Areas Community Center here. I hope you can hear me okay.
You have great lighting.
Thank you all. Thank you. I was also going for a noirish element for this one, apparently. Thank you all for taking the time to host this meeting and for giving me a few minutes to talk. My name is Adam Birnbaum. I'm running in the 24th legislative for position. Very brief about myself. I grew up in rural Washington. The home I grew up in as a kid had two things. My mom with behavioral health issues, and my dad had a union job as a high school counselor. And
Adam,
I mentioned that because I think
video,
that
Adam, because you're breaking up. Okay.
Okay.
We'll just hear your audio. Okay.
Gotcha. I will.
Go ahead.
All right. Is that a bit clear? Okay.
That's better. Yeah. Thank you.
You'll all have to do without my my noirish lighting. I mentioned the home that I grew up in to contextualize a little bit about some of the things that motivate me to participate in politics. I understand the importance of having well-paying jobs that provide benefits to people. I saw how the absence of those jobs affected many of the kids who I grew up with, and I know that what my dad's union job did for my family. And what it did is it provided us with a tremendous amount of stability. It meant that My mom always had access to health insurance. It meant that we didn't have to move around a lot when I was a kid. It meant that during the economic ups and downs that destabilized the lives of many of my peers, I was able to finish high school and go to college. Over the last several years, I've been talking to people all across the district, working as a legislative assistant and an organizer for Derek Kilmer. And I have gotten a chance to talk to a lot of people who live in homes that have seen those union jobs go away. I talked to senior citizens who are struggling to make ends meet in manufactured home parks. I talk to young people who are struggling to afford to buy their first homes. And I'd like to share briefly about how, in my mind, that intersects with the goals and motivations of this caucus, because I think that there's oftentimes a false choice that's presented to people in rural communities between having those well-paying jobs and protecting the environment. And I believe deeply that we should reject that choice. I think that there's a path forward where we send a lot of people back to work in forests, not to strip them for corporate profits, but to strengthen them for a changing climate, to improve their ability to store water, to remove invasive species, to improve biodiversity. And I, if elected, will be a champion for those policies. In the community, I've worked on the Clallam County Conservation Futures Program Advisory Board, which purchases primarily farmland, but also some forest land as well, and helps to convert it and removes its development rights to make sure that this land is able to maintain its original purpose and isn't turned into suburban developments. I think that there truly are many opportunities for us, especially in rural communities, to not see environmentalism as a threat to economic prosperity, but as an opportunity for us to build an economy that will be able to weather the changes that will come in the future as well. So thank you all for taking the time for this meeting and to chat with me briefly. And I turn your endorsement.
We really appreciate your making the time for us, Adam. Thank you. Have a good evening. Cameron Severns, it turns out, cannot join us, so we're going to move on to Kenneth King. Kenneth, like Cameron, is from LD 25. Devin Rydell Kelly is on deck. Yasmin Trudeau is on the fence, and Mari Levitt is in the hole. Go ahead, please, Kenneth.
Thank you all for having me. Like it was just stated, Cameron is one of my running mates. He apologizes for not being able to make it tonight. Key and Davida and Shelley and I are all working together here in the 25th Legislative District to try to make serious change. So first of all, my name is Kenneth King. I'm a behavioral health specialist and I work in community-based crisis response and diversion, which means a lot of the legislation that we've talked about over the last few years directly relates to what I do in the field, working with individuals struggling with homelessness, substance use disorder, mental health. Now, the thing is that I'm not an environmentalist, which is why I'm here asking for your endorsement, but also your partnership, because I need that information. A few years ago, I was the chair for the Puyallup Watershed Initiative, and it tied my knowledge of social issues to the environmental issues. And I don't know if you all know this, because I'm not here specifically as an environmentalist, I'm here because it's a necessity in our district. 40 years ago, you might remember when we built the Puyallup Mall or the South Hill Mall. This whole area in central Pierce County was a completely wooded area, very low housing, a very completely different place than the urban sprawl it is now. We have been struggling. We don't have public transportation in the majority of my district. We don't have infrastructure in the majority of my district. Because of the fact that there are so many houses being built without that infrastructure being planned and implemented, we have thousands of cars taking 2-lane roads. But it's worse outside of my district because all of central Pierce County and East Pierce County is having to deal with this as our lifestyle out here. Now, some of you who are environmentalists know that we are still struggling with the after effects of the Electron Dam on the Puyallup watershed. We're also dealing with now, because of all the overdevelopment, the tract housing that's been put in, the thousands of new homes, most of them is still on septic. They're not being put in with drain fields. They're being put in above the water table that drains into the watershed that, as you all know, goes all the way into Tacoma. We are dealing with possible environmental catastrophe out here, which is why I'm going to need environmentalists to help me out when I get down here. I'm running against Chris Gilden for the 25th Legislative District. I would like you all to go to my website because of the fact that my three main points are youth rights, access to behavioral health and healthcare, and the overdevelopment or the negative impacts of overdevelopment. And that's very hard for a lot of the general public to understand because unfortunately the term behavioral health is new. And so people don't really all understand how that relates to legislation. And I have a video statement on my website specifically stating how it all ties to policy. Like I said, you know, me and Cam and Shelly and Davida are all partnering out here. They've been hitting tons of doors. I've been going to tons of the systematic meetings. We've been getting as much work as we can on a community level, and now it's time for us all to be taking a bigger step on the state and county level. Thankfully, Devin's here. Devin has been one of my go-to people for the environmental issues. So he's coming up after me. Thank you all very much. I put my website and the contact information in the chat.
Thank you, Kenneth. Yes, next up is Devin Rydell Kelly of LD27. Yasmin Trudeau is on deck. Mari Levitt is on the fence. Richard Miller is in the hole. Please go ahead, Devin.
Hi, folks. Thank you so very much for having me here. I love that I get to go up after Ken. He's one of my favorite folks these days. My name is Devin Rydell Kelly. I'll just spend a brief amount talking about myself and my history, and then get into my campaign, which is really about fighting for a future that works for all. So I was, housing unstable when I was a kid. I moved almost every single year of my life, and I wound up in rural Idaho when I was 9 years old. And this combination of moving constantly, not really having a base of community, and seeing a lot of boom and bust cycles gave me a lot of insights about the need for stability in people's lives. And it's partially why I'm taking fundamentally a housing first approach. But I also believe that we face a number of intersecting deep crises in housing, in education, and the environment that are all interrelated and all deal with our underlying tax structure, economy, and systems. And these crises are impacting us in profound ways. We see folks in the streets. We see folks losing housing. We see folks at risk of losing everything all the time. So I support really bold agendas, specifically in housing, such as developing a state social housing developer. I still support Senator Dro's legislation for rent stabilization. And I also think we need innovative solutions with public banking. I think that our K-12 funding model is completely broken and creating disasters for our next generation of young people. I've been really lucky to work in education activism and policy for many years now, over a decade, first as a union researcher and organizer with SEIU 925, and for 6 years as director of research evaluation and data with the Foundation for Tacoma Students. And I've seen that we need deep transformation in our education system. This includes funding for guidance counselors, nurses, mental health professionals, and right fit pathways. It includes changing the K-12 funding model to move from a pure pupil model to one that's more based in equity and addressing historical racism and inequalities. It means finally making college free for, in 2 years, colleges and universities in Washington, so we can prepare the next generation of workers. And finally, all of this doesn't really matter if we're inheriting a burning world. I think that climate change is the single biggest existential crisis that we're facing as a people, as a population, and as a planet. It's why I center a Green New Deal with a just transition. I think that we need to bring working class people along with us and unions along with us and center them in any type of climate policy. And that includes anything that is around a technological transition, especially with things like hydrogen. If we can't bring workers and we can't bring frontline communities and communities of color, then we're not going to be able to pass and make winning climate change legislation for all. I encourage folks to look at legislation passed in New York, the Build Public Renewables Act. I'm a big fan of that. I'm going to introduce that in an early session here, and to the Green New Deal initiative, a referendum that was passed in Maine. All of this was passed through organizing and bringing folks together and creating a common vision. Finally, I've been really lucky to have over 25 years of experience as a community organizer in Idaho and Washington, the last 10 in Tacoma, and to build unlikely coalitions that have won major political gains. My first big fight was a 5-year campaign that won minimum wage for migrant farm workers in Idaho, and it taught me about the value of interracial, interfaith coalition building. More recently, I was one of the leaders of Tacoma for All that brought us Initiative 1 in Tacoma, and the an intentional response coalition, which created Tacoma's non-police crisis response team. I think that we need politicians that think like organizers and don't think like run-of-the-mill politics as usual folks. I'm running against a deeply entrenched incumbent, Jake Fye, who is a Democrat, but takes tons of corporate money, particularly from the fossil fuel industry, and I think is deeply out of touch with the district. We've knocked on 25,000 doors, we've raised 60 grand, we are a viable campaign. We're in it to win it, and we're fighting for a future that works for all. I encourage you to check out my website, and I would love to get your support. Visit www.devon427.org. Thank you, and solidarity to all.
Thank you, Devin. We are a bit over halfway through, and I am reminded of how nice it is to hear all of these people so committed to the climate and the environment. And remember that the video of this evening is going to be posted on our YouTube channel with a link on our Facebook page and in our newsletter. And even after the election, it'll be a good tonic to just watch it from time to time to feel good. So next up is Yasmin Trudeau from LD27. Mari Levitt is on deck, Richard Miller is on the fence, and Heather Colin is in the hole. Please go ahead, Yasmin.
Thank you. And I also just want to start with some gratitude in hearing that people are, are bringing their lived experience and their professional experience and really want to put that to work in the legislature. I'm really excited about that. And that's part of what had me running for office and what has me seeking to retain this seat. I serve as the state senator for the 27th legislative district, which is large parts of Tacoma and into Fife. And I was unanimously appointed in 21. I was elected in 22. So this is my second campaign ever, but my first where I was not pregnant or delivering a baby. So it feels unique in many ways. I would not recommend, but it was an incredible experience. As a child survivor of poverty and violence, I really think about, gratitude every single day and what it means for me to have gained the educational and the professional experiences that I've had. My job before becoming a legislator was as a legislative director for Attorney General Bob Ferguson. I led a number of his initiatives, including creating his first tribal affairs unit. I created that and then staffed that, and then went on to create his racial equity unit, which I still serve as a program and training analyst. And it's given me a really deep insight. In addition, as part of his core leadership team was when we created and he invested in the Environmental Protection Division, which is led by one of my former law professors and tied to some legislation that I had the opportunity to work on this past session. But I say that because I think I was just really at a unique spot when Senator Jeannie Darneal announced that she was retiring kind of out of the blue for most folks that were tracking the legislative arena. And I thought, well, maybe this is a chance to actually think about the way that these two worlds converge. My values in terms of a climate policy is the same as I operate on anything else, which is that if it's something that impacts me, I try to learn as much as I can about it. And then it is my duty to understand how that intersects with all of the other issues and how it impacts other community members. For climate change and policy, I think a lot about the intersection of migration. I think a lot about the intersections of the issues, economic issues that we need to anticipate and not just respond to, but be proactive to, because I was born in Bangladesh and my mother's from a southern fishing village that I'm very proud to be from, but it likely is going to be underwater potentially in my lifetime and certainly in my children's lifetime. And so I think about all of these things together, and sometimes it's hard to parse out what's in this committee and what policy issue exists, because I really think that our issues are intersectional. And we have a great opportunity here to protect an environment that is really unique in many regards. Washington State has some of our most beautiful, magnificent natural resources. We also have a relationship to sovereign nations here that we need to respect and understand as co-managers of those precious resources. And I think the opportunity to think about our responsibility to our next generation. You might hear screaming in the background. I don't know what you can hear, but I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I think it's our responsibility, not just for our own kids, but for all of the next generations that come after us, to think about the way that we plan. So I know I've only got a few seconds left, but one policy I'm really proud of is actually ensuring in statute that we have restitution for environmental crimes. So now in Washington state law, if you are a local jurisdiction, if you are a business, if you are a landowner and you have been impacted by an environmental crime, you can now go and petition the court and get restitution for the harm that you have suffered. And we call it our sleeper environmental bill, because I think a lot of folks didn't really understand how it worked, because this is where my ability to come in as an attorney and think about, especially as we look at the Supreme Court's attempt to impact the way we regulate our environment, how can we actually hold criminal polluters liable? So I have a lot more plans on those 3 statutes and how to update them to not just hold people accountable, to also deter bad behavior. But I think my clock is up. So I spoke a lot, and just really happy to be here and a part of this process. And thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Next up, we have Mari Levitt from LD 28, position 1. Richard Miller is on deck. Heather Colin is on the fence, and Brian Gunn is in the hole. Please go ahead, Mari.
Good evening, everyone. And I come to you from my car, pulled over safely, and on my way home from a legislative meeting. Grateful for the opportunity to join you tonight and to hear of all these great candidates who are coming forward and putting their foot forward to support our environment. I have served my name is Mari Levitt. I represent the beautiful 28th Legislative District, which is West Pierce County. I've been grateful to serve in this role since 2018 when I was first elected, and grateful for your caucus support in the past. I also have the endorsement of the Washington Conservation Voters and the Sierra Club. And it's really been an honor to serve the 28th Pierce County and beyond. Since I was first elected, I've worked for our district and beyond on salmon restoration projects, getting a really important salmon restoration project in my district my first year. Have worked to do environmental cleanup in Old Fort Lake, which is in the 28th. Have worked quite a bit on broader salmon restoration, making sure that we are working with our tribal partners together to assess how we can move forward in a safe, environmentally sound way. Have continued just this past year, got House Bill 1012 passed. It took 3 years, and that was the Extreme Weather Protection Act, and really came about because of a city in my district. We all know extreme weather patterns continue and are only increasing, and in 2021 we lost 1,000 souls, and I didn't feel that the folks in the 28th were responding in a way that was taking care of our neighbors. And so now we have a statewide grant program for local jurisdictions and our tribal partners to access dollars during times of extreme heat, cooling, and in times of poor air quality, because we know that poor air quality is one of the factors of our social determinants of health. I believe that climate change is a public health crisis. And we need to work to address it in that sense of urgency. And I'll tell you a quick story. I have a daughter who just started college, but a couple of years ago, we were talking about important issues in her age group and her friends, and the environment is a top priority for our young people and moving forward. And she said to me, "Mom, if you don't support the environment, I'm not going to vote for you when I'm 18." And I think that's that's important to recognize that our future generations are expecting us to step up and do the hard work. I have voted and supported the low carbon fuel standards all 3 times, Climate Commitment Act. And know that without the dollars that we're getting from the Climate Commitment Act, we're really going to be in a way of hurt. I've also worked to get electric charging stations in my district, supported solar panels, et cetera. And so really grateful for the opportunity to serve and seek guidance and expert advice on a host of different policies that come before us, but continue to be a strong advocate for our environments and to continue to push us hard in ways that really focus on making sure that our areas of highest poverty aren't the ones who feel the brunt of the impact of climate change, which is now the case. We know that The areas of the highest pollution are in our lowest SES or socioeconomic status areas, and that's just not acceptable. So grateful to continue to do the work as the legislator in the 28th and support our state on environmental impacts, and we'll continue to do so once reelected. And grateful for your past support, and certainly seek your kind consideration for endorsement and continued support to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mari, and thanks for parking. Next up, we have Richard Miller from LD29. Heather Colin is on deck. Brian Gunn is on the fence, and Mia Suling Gregerson is in the hole. Please go ahead, Richard.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for this time and for this invitation to come and talk to you. I think this is one of the most important issues that needs to be spoke about. So I appreciate that. Again, my name is Richard Miller. I'm a community first guy. I'm a big believer that we're at a time where the community needs to come together. We're at a time that we need to find more in common than we have apart. And that's been my focus kind of for the last decade or more in my life, serving my community, showing up for my community. I have over a decade of nonprofit experience working with the unhoused, working with people coming out of our institutions, mental health institutions, substance use disorder, those kinds of things. And I've transitioned that into owning my own small business. I am representing or looking to represent the 29th district. The 29th district is a low-income district, kind of echoing what Maury just said. We know, and you know, that districts like mine are the most affected. Districts like mine are the people that suffer from bad environmental policy or the lack thereof. And the unfortunate case is that people in my district can't even think about the environment because they're just trying to pay their bills. They're just trying to survive. So one focus of mine is education. I believe in education. I believe in sharing information. And I really believe that my district needs to be educated on what these things mean and how it impacts them. Right now, people are just trying to survive. I'm a father of a 7 and an 8-year-old, and my focus is trying to create a future and an environment that they can be happy and proud to live in. I'm a Northwest native. I was born in Seattle. I've lived in Washington most of my life. I'm very proud of that. I think we live in the most beautiful state in the United States. But things are happening here. Just in my lifetime, I've seen things change and the environment be affected. It's really important for this to happen now because, in my opinion, we're on the brink of not being able to fix what's going on. We're really fortunate to live in a beautiful landscape with the Cascades, with the Olympic Peninsula, the Puget Sound, and we need to preserve that. I'm in a district where we're going to destroy a wetland to build housing coming up. I was voted and supported by people like my opponent, and I just don't think we should be destroying those things. I love to fish, but I think we need to put caps on that and make sure that we're taking care of our environment and our wildlife. I really am in favor of strong environmental policies for this state, lowering carbon emissions. I support the CCA. But I'm not environmentalist, like my guy Ken King said. One of my main focuses and something that I think is different than my opponent is I'm going to come to you. I pledge to come to anybody who's the expert in specific areas to say, what do we need to do? What do you believe? Because you're the experts and I'm not. And so I pledge to work in collaboration and communication with you to make sure that we're getting things done. Environmental protection is also a matter of public health. Pollution and climate change pose serious risks to our health and well-being. Environmentalism is tied to our economy. Right now in our economy, you think of Washington State, where we have fishing, where we have tourism, where we once had a lot of lumber. All of these things are tied to our environment, and we really need to think and plan of how we're going to move forward with these things. I know my time is about to run out. I will put my campaign site in the chat, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Richard. Thanks for being here. And I will put the link to the legislative map in the chat again so that everybody can access that. Next up is Heather Colin from
LD 12, Brian Gunn is on deck, Mia Sue Ling Gregerson is on the fence, and Joe Fitzgibbon is in the hole. Go ahead, please, Heather.
Hi, thank you. My name's Heather Cullen. I really appreciate this invitation. I'm actually a candidate running for the 12th District Washington State House Representative House position. Also, things to know about me: I'm a registered nurse at Harborview Medical Center. I'm a current City of North Bend City Council member. Real quick background: I grew up in Southern California in the 70s. We used to have first stage smog alerts where we would not be allowed to go out to recess. We had to rest our heads down. Since that time, California has really cleaned up their pollution, and I went back in 2017, and I never knew that there was mountains to the right of me. It blew my mind away that how clean the air was. So that was awesome. Things that I've done or City of North Bend has done for the environment is pretty cool. So we've recently purchased land, 30 acres of mature forest land, and we made it into a bike park, but it allowed us to preserve thousands of trees and not put in development. We also have a wastewater treatment plant that was open to sunlight and an oxidation ditch. And so the new project, we ended up making a shade structure, which helps keep the water cooler and colder because we put that water back into the river, which affects all salmon downstream. So that's great. 2021, the Surface Water Design Manual, we minimize storm water impacts. That's super huge. We do live by the Snoqualmie River, which is the only natural river that's undammed in our state. And so we are required to mitigate it to keep it clean and healthy. We bring in water to it when we are in times of drought, and we give drop to drop from what we're measuring that's not there. We implemented on my watch the water conservation ordinance, which was kind of controversial, to be fair, but we only implemented, we have like 3 stages of drought. So as we've only gone to stage 2 twice. And at that time, we just request that you minimize your watering schedule of your lawn, do it certain times a day, that sort of thing. We do love green space here in North Bend. We have a lot of it. We're very, very fortunate. And we do work, there's Meadowbrook Farm. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is our natural area where you see a lot of elk. We work with the Snoqualmie tribe, and they're trying to do prairie restoration. So instead of having it be a farm, bringing back native plants. I guess I don't need all my time.
Okay.
But I
we need that
I
time.
would appreciate your endorsement. I do care about climate and the environment, and if elected, I will definitely fight for that.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Brian Gunn from LD 31. Mia Sue Ling Gregerson is on deck. Joe Fitzgibbon is on the fence. And Tanisen is in the hole. Please go ahead, Brian.
Hey, my name's Brian Gunn. Thank you for the opportunity. I am running for state representative position number 2 here in LD 31. My district is mostly rural eastern Pierce County and parts of eastern and southern King County. I guess you can say I won my primary. It was a 4-way race for an open seat. I came in second place, and I have been the reason I got involved in politics was because of my commitment to the environment. I am a member of the Climate Reality Leadership Corps. Those principles and protecting our environment are just really the main reason for me. For me being involved in politics, and my opponents just don't get it. One of my opponents said, warming is something the Earth does all the time, and it has for millennia, and there's nothing unusual about it. And the other one says, yes, climate change is happening, but we can't let it interfere with business. Well, you know, I was able to actually kick out the one who said that climate change is just kind of a hoax. And so he will not be on the ballot in November. But I am still going to have to compete against someone who believes that, you know, that climate is not, that climate issues are not urgent, and they really are, and they really we need to look at these situations, and I've heard some folks speak to this, and it's so true that this is an opportunity. It is a business opportunity. We can create a renewal of our environment and our economy at the same time. And so how do we make that happen? I was very proud to represent the Washington State at the DNC. And while I was there, I attended the Rural Council, ran across something called the Rural New Deal. And it's a 10-point plan that is basically, I realized, I started leafing through it. Well, that's my platform, because I've been talking in my district about our need to invest in infrastructure. We've been growing like crazy, putting in new housing, but we haven't been investing in the infrastructure to support that. And that means that we've got problems with our roads. We've got bridges that need to be replaced. We also have water treatment facilities that need to be improved. And we have an opportunity now with the infrastructure bill that was passed by the Biden administration. We can get some of these projects funded as much as 80% by the federal government. We have to make those investments so that we can then create this rural New Deal where we start bringing businesses back, into some of these areas that have really been suffering, where our schools and our healthcare are not at the levels that they need to be. And we can also look at bringing in businesses that are actually going to help us get out of the climate crisis. Why aren't we building parts for windmills? Why aren't we building solar panels? Why don't we bring those businesses here? Because I talked to labor, they want those kinds of good labor jobs here. I have a labor endorsement as well from the Washington State Labor Council. And I would really appreciate having an endorsement from the Environmental Council as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, we have Mia Sulene Gregerson from LD33. Joe Fitzgibbon is on deck. Tana Sen is on the fence, and Andrea Suarez is in the hole. Please go ahead, Mia.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Mia Gregerson. I'm from the 33rd Legislative District. The district is South King County, where the SeaTac Airport is. As you can imagine, we are at the center of a lot of different issues related to overburdened communities and environmental justice, whether it's the wage gap, the housing gap, racial equity gap. I come into the state legislature through an appointment process of 2013 and have been reelected since then. As a former chair of the state government and tribal relations, I helped pass the HEAL Act when it hit the House floor and ran up against about 30 amendments. I also have been working now as a vice chair in the Appropriations Committee for several years and through the pandemic. So we use a lot of those one-time federal dollars to support communities and trusted messengers where they are to help jumpstart soil initiatives and biodiversity through Washington State University Extension Branch. We worked with our tribal governments to ensure that we could lift up not only access to broadband, affordable broadband fast enough, but also digital equity and inclusion, literacy. We also fought against cyber security initiatives. Moving forward to the Climate Commitment Act dollars, and you'll hear from the awesome Representative Fitzgibbon pretty soon, but worked in partnership around those dollars and now working very hard to make sure that that initiative does not pass. I also believe in housing supply. The more housing supply, the more density is very environmentally friendly, climate friendly, but access is important. That means affordable housing. It means services around that. And it also means helping to support our unsheltered. We know that in places like Minnesota, where it's below zero, that there's literally zero unsheltered. So we can do that. I believe as we move forward towards electrification and other ways to create utilities that are less of reliance on fossil fuels, that we need to be mindful of our communities that are low income, multiple generations of multiple languages. Electrification typically only helps those that are able to afford EV vehicles, use credit cards, and are banked. I also am part of the State Innovation Exchange, which is a progressive think tank. And I was part of the inaugural work with CROP, which is rural and sustainable agriculture. Most recently, I participated in aqua farming, and learning about the harmful practices of fish farms. And we know here in Washington State, we learn firsthand. But part of our role as being legislators and leaders in this area is to help our colleagues across the country and other states. We also have some great small businesses that are leading in areas such as Aqua Aga, that is a small company of just 16 people in Tacoma that have figured out how to remove PFAS from water. So we also have Lilo Tree out of Redmond, who know how to build semiconductors without using cyanide. So our role is also to help put them on a platform so that they have access to a market. And I also work on right to repair. As we know, we wrongfully throw away our cell phones at about 3,200 a day in Washington State, and we can do better than that. And again, that is a state-to-state initiative. And I think I'll end with, again, going back to the impacts around being here, living here, a fourth generation in the shadow of the SeaTac airport. While it's so important, I recognize that we have to also have freight mobility, which means working streets that are working for everyone. It means that we also have to have a tree canopy. We have to be mindful about the trees that we have. We also need to replant. We need to have access to healthy homes to mitigate the air quality. We need to have noise abatement. We need to have testing so we know where these harmful chemicals are hurting our communities. And we also need to make sure our built environment is fair. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk tonight.
Thank you. Next up, we have Joe Fitzgibbon. Tana Sen is on deck. Andrea Suarez is on the fence. Sean Scott is in the hole. And please stick around after we finish with our live speakers. We still have a statement that a candidate sent to us and a video. So we have about a half dozen speakers left. Please go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your commitment to fighting for climate progress and for our environment. That's the issue that motivated me to first run for office 14 years ago. And it's an issue on which we have made tremendous progress during the time I've been in office. I'm very proud of my role in that. I spent 9 years as the chair of the House Environment and Energy Committee. And during that time, we passed the Climate Commitment Act. We passed the Clean Buildings Act. We passed both hydrofluorocarbon laws, which I was the prime sponsor of. We passed the Clean Fuel Standard, which I was the prime sponsor of. We passed the Zero Emission Vehicle Standard, and we passed the Clean Energy Transformation Act. All of the greatest climate accomplishments of our state we passed in the 2019 to 2021 time window. Of course, the most important thing that we can do to protect our climate as Washingtonians this November is to reject Initiative 2117 and protect the Climate Commitment Act, which is underpinning all of our climate progress in the state, as well as to defeat Initiative 2066, which would roll back our nation-leading gas transition bill that we passed by one vote in each chamber this legislative session. Our work is nowhere close to done, but I would proudly put Washington's climate progress up against any other states. We remain the only state legislature in the nation that has ever passed a carbon pricing bill through our legislature. We're happy to join California in having a carbon pricing program, although theirs did not pass through their legislature. It passed as an administrative act of the California Air Resources Board. It was not easy to get that done. It was the culmination of 10 years of hard work, and it is powering our progress. It is ensuring that we are accountable to our ambitious greenhouse gas reduction targets, and it's investing billions of dollars in our transition to cleaner transportation, cleaner buildings, cleaner electricity, healthier salmon, fewer wildfires. As House Majority Leader, in which role I've served the last 2 sessions, I have worked with Representative Gregerson, who you heard from before, and the rest of our budget team to make sure that our Climate Commitment Act dollars were invested strategically in impactful ways, as well as making sure to fend off any potential attacks on our climate progress or our environment more generally. In the 2 years to come, I hope that we will both continue those strategic investments, as well as adopt important new policies to protect our environment, like extended producer responsibility for packaging and tire efficiency law that can help save Washingtonians money and reduce emissions further. So I appreciate your consideration and hope to earn your support.
Thank you, Joe. Next up, we have Tana Sen. Andrea Suarez is on deck, Sean Scott is on the fence, and Jerry Pollitt is in the hole. And then we'll have 2 additional things after Jerry, and then we'll be able to call it a night, and we're not that far off schedule. Please go ahead, Tana. Is Tana here? If Tana is not here, then maybe we'll go on to Andrea. Let's give Tana another couple of seconds to find her mute button. Okay, Andrea, let's go to you. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Suarez, a Belltown resident, sitting here in my wonderful, vibrant community here, breaking away from dinner on this lovely Thursday evening. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Andrea Suarez. I'm running for the, obviously, the legislative 43rd legislative position for the State House of Representatives. I am the founder of We Heart Seattle. And, I was a little disheartened when I jumped on today to find a message, that I'm affiliated, with the GOP, or I talk to the GOP. And I just want to say to the audience that we need to work together to solve our problems and stop with the lies and the nonsense of what is going on behind the scenes here. My organization and our volunteers have clocked more than 14,000 hours of volunteer field work, where we've picked up thousands of propane tanks, millions of pounds of over 1.4 million pounds of trash, biohazards, needles, bodies, metals, plastic bottles. I can't think of somebody that's more of environmentally impassioned than I am. And I know there's a lot of big picture discussions to be had in Olympia, and I'm looking forward to those, but I'm a boots on the ground person that looks right in front of us, right here, right now in our green belts. What is happening in our green spaces? What's happening under our bridges? We have millions of pounds of trash in the state of Washington, suffocating our soil, suffocating our tree canopies, suffocating our urban hiking trails from debris that is decades old. And I have firsthand experience cleaning that up. And I bring that empirical evidence, that boots on the ground, ears on the ground, dirty hands, level setting the power dynamic with people living and suffering in our green spaces to clean that up. And that's the environmentalist in me. I believe in climate change. I believe in global warming. I believe we need to do something about it. I think there's a lot of big ideas. I was super saddened to hear about what's happening on the East Coast with respect to the whales dying. The fishermen are sounding the alarm that there's no more lobsters and scallops to harvest as a result of some of the wind farms. So I am interested in learning about that and studying that and hearing from all sides what are the best ways to combat global warming. But for me, what I bring to the table in the state of Washington is a grassroots organization. It's not about everything I know. It's about how I think and solve problems. And I'm very incremental in let's clean the house. Let's pick up the garbage, pick up the needles, the tires, the propane tanks. Just last weekend, on Labor Day weekend, our volunteers picked up 80 propane tanks from the Magnolia Greenbelt, which are a hazard from a fire standpoint, metals, explosives, burning down our tree canopies. Nobody's sounding the alarm about that, from my understanding, except for me. So I like to do small. I would like to pass legislation that educates homeowners how to insulate their home, to reduce the use of electricity, to do their laundry and cook their food and wash their dishes when electricity is not expensive. So things like that for me are very important. Do smaller and also think bigger. We can do both of those at the same time. Thank you for your time, and I do ask you for your endorsement. Have a great evening.
Thank you for making time for us, Andrea.
No problem.
Next up is Sean Scott. I forgot to mention that Andrea is from the 43rd and Sean Scott is also from the 43rd LD. Jerry Pollitt is coming up after Sean, and then we will hear a statement and watch a video from two candidates who weren't able to join us. Please go ahead, Sean.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you so much. And it's great to be in your expert hands as you're chairing the meeting, landing the plane today with all the great candidates that we have chiming in from across the state. My name is Sean Scott. My pronouns are he, him. I'm also running to represent the people of the 43rd Legislative District in the Washington State House of Representatives. Thus far in this election, we have been endorsed by the Washington Conservation Action Group, Puget Sound Sage Leaders, the Transit Writers Union, and the Urbanist. And I think that part of the reason why there has been a consensus of environmental groups that have coalesced, not behind my campaign, but around my campaign and with my campaign, is because we have shared values and vision and have identified issues that are impacting all of us in the state of Washington. We really look at this, and on this campaign, we have called repeatedly for a better Washington. Better Washington, I think, is a sustainable Washington. It is a state where the public sector can really pave a new era of mass transit, of renewable energy programs, and build and continue to build cities that are in harmony with nature. I think that a sustainable Washington will initiate three kinds of programs, and these are sort of the three broad policy silos that we have talked about in the course of this campaign. Number one, it's a green jobs program, the idea that there was no market path to climate justice, that really, if we had a market path to climate sustainability, we probably would have gotten there already. So as important as it is to make sure that we defend the Climate Commitment Act, we also want to make sure that we enact a new green jobs program in the state of Washington. The second kind of program that we would like to see in the state legislature, and when I say we, I talk about the coalition that we've been building around this campaign, is a just transition. It's the idea that those who are closest to the problem of climate change are going to be closest to the solutions. And the third aspect of it is around building public programs, to meet public issues. We would like to establish a workforce transition council to guide labor's role in building state climate programs. We want to collaborate with the Department of L&I to ensure fair implementation of outdoor heat exposure laws. I would like to expand the climate workforce development programs between unions and state schools, which would be building on the work that my predecessor in this seat, Representative Frank Chopp, started with the Workforce Education Act. We've been supported in this race, and we support in this race the Washington State Labor Council, which has identified that expanding the Workforce Education Act would be a tremendous boon towards worker retraining. A lot of those workers are going to be the labor force that's going to help us build the renewable programs that we would like to see. We want to identify reliable sources of long-term funding to reach state mass transit targets. And we want a school roofs program that would be piloted out of Tri-Cities, understanding that there can be a real intersection between what's going on with some of our most vulnerable communities in central Washington, where worker training needs to be updated there, and the fact that we have real climate imperatives that we need to meet in the state of Washington. So I think that, it's really about making sure that the state of Washington sort of lives up to the reputation that we have as a climate leader, as a state with tall trees and rolling hills, deep water. I think in a lot of ways, our actual record on climate change sort of contradicts that notion that we project. But at the same time, we've done a lot of good work that we need to make sure to defend as well. My endorsement in this race by the 43rd LD Democrats, I think, is a strong signal that we're getting ready to build that kind of coalition where we're going to project a very strong eco-conscious, eco-friendly vision for what it means and translate that into legislative policy. So I humbly ask for your endorsement in that endeavor.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. And our final person joining us tonight to speak is Jerry Pollitt from LD 46. And following Jerry's presentation, we're going to hear a statement sent to us by James DeHart from the 35th. And we're going to watch a video that Chapalo Street of the 37th made to send to us. He's in Washington, D.C. tonight. He might even be asleep by now. Please go ahead, Jerry. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Steve and Jeff, and to everyone who stayed on for the final candidate here. I didn't know that anyone would still be on. Mari Levitt and I just returned from a Interstate Higher Ed Commission meeting in Denver, and appreciate your putting me on, giving me time to get home. For those of you who don't know me, I've spent my entire career as a public interest environmental attorney. That's why I went to law school, was to fight for the environment and justice. And early in my career, I helped write our state Superfund law, the MOTCA, Model Toxics Control Act, for cleaning up contamination, and helped write the Growth Management Act. And I led the campaign, wrote and led the campaign that stopped Hanford from becoming the nation's first high-level nuclear waste dump. Worked closely for the last 40 years with the Yakima Nation, Nez Perce, and Umatilla Nations to fight for the cleanup of Hanford, respect for treaty rights and sovereignty, and restoration of health and protection of the Columbia River from the nation's most contaminated area, which still remains 30 years after cleanup began, still remains the most contaminated and dangerous industrial facility in the Western Hemisphere. In terms of looking at climate justice and green jobs, I want to point out tonight, and I know there are some of you who know this already, but the greatest example of conversion to green jobs in American history is the work we did in the Northwest, organizing to stop the production of plutonium for nuclear weapons and to convert those jobs into the cleanup of Hanford. Just came back from Denver, where I was also helped lead the effort to convert creating plutonium triggers for nuclear bombs into cleanup jobs. That has been the greatest conversion and the model for many of our conversion from fossil fuel to green job programs. I run the only tribal environmental law program to train new law students to work for the environment and protection of cultural resources in the Northwest. I devote my summers to that. And we struggle to continue to fight for the cleanup of the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. But I want to take a minute to alert everyone who has remained on to a real threat in terms of the HEAL Act and air quality. Across the state, we are supposed to be not only protecting, but improving the air quality in our most overburdened, highly impacted communities under the HEAL Act using CCA money. We have to defeat the rollback of CCA, but we have to recognize that we are not even monitoring the air quality in most of our highly impacted and overburdened communities. I'm working with the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition and others, including in Central Washington, over the fact that we say we're going to monitor and improve air quality in those highly impacted communities like in Toppenish, Sunnyside, or here in my district in Lake City, but we don't even monitor the air or in the Duwamish. And we're doing it at a grassroots level, but we need to move the state to fund the air quality monitoring and then invest those CCA funds to improve the health and well-being of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for making the time for us after your travels. Okay, so we have two speakers left. We have a statement that James DeHart sent, and Jeff Berner is going to read that, and Jeff's also going to share a screen for Chapalo Street's video. And while I have your attention, I'm going to put into the chat a link to join ECC. We have some elected people who are members of ECC. We'd love to have more. If you all hung around here for that long, then maybe you'd be interested in joining us. Over to you, Jeff. You are muted. There you
Yes,
go.
thank you. I have a statement here from James DeHart, who was kind enough to send us a written statement, given the fact that he was unable to join us. And I'll read that for you while people read it themselves. Thank you for the opportunity to give a statement. My name is James DeHart. I'm running for the state representative in the 35th Legislative District. I apologize for not being able to attend, as I am having a meet and greet in Olympia this evening. Washington State is a leader in environmental action, and I'm looking forward to being on the forefront of defeating climate change for the next generation, making sure that we can continue to build more wind, solar, and hydroelectric facilities to ensure that we have a clean energy future for generations to come. I look forward to working with the public and private sectors to ensure that we have more homes that are able to generate their own solar power, wind farms that power entire towns and cities, and hydroelectric facilities that bring power to some of the most remote areas of our state. Our state takes these issues seriously, and so do I, and I look forward to working with the Environment and Climate Caucus in the near future to bring even more renewable energy to our communities.
Okay, thank you. From James DeHart.
That's from James DeHart.
Okay.
And then I also have a video here of from Chapalo Street, and hopefully this will work. Let's see if we can get this to work here. I will double check that I have it available to share. Let's see. And let's see if I can figure out how to make this. There we go.
Hi, I'm Chapalo Street, and I'm running for re-election to the Washington State House of Representatives in the 37th LD. That's South Seattle. I'm sorry I couldn't join you guys tonight, but I'm currently in DC at the Congressional Black Conference. That said, I'm still very excited in an ECC endorsement. In my first term, I was excited to be a member of the Environment and Energy Committee, where we fought for a range of environmental benefits, from producer responsibility to streamlining clean energy siting and environmental justice issues. Personally, I ran and passed bills which updated our state's outdated climate response strategy, House Bill 1170, and implemented the nation's strongest battery recycling law, House Bill 1533. I also had bills to reduce emissions by increasing the efficiency of tires on cars, House Bill 2262, and urging the Washington State federal delegation to enter the United States into a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty, House Joint Memorial 4003. Unfortunately, these last two bills didn't pass. Despite all that great work we accomplished in the legislature this past term, the largest environmental issue we have this year is the initiative to recall the CCA. I'm working with the No campaign to fight this threat. The 37th District is one of the most diverse districts in the country, and I use my position on the Environment and Energy Committee to champion bills which center environmental justice. This has been particularly easy to do this past term with my fellow freshman, Representative Mena. She's sponsored great legislation like preventing utility shutoffs during heat waves, fighting toxins in cosmetics, and requiring environmental justice to be considered as part of the permitting process. She has a wealth of experience from her day job in the Department of Ecology, and I'm always happy to partner with her to improve the lives of BIPOC people, uphold tribal sovereignty, and protect heavily impacted communities from environmental harm. If reelected, I intend to stay on the Environment and Energy Committee, where I'll be able to work on all environmental legislation that comes through the House. I also personally run bills through the committee, like extending our battery recycling program to cover batteries from electric vehicles. You can get a sneak peek of that bill, HB 2501, as we dropped it at the end of the 24th session. I ask for your endorsement and look forward to working together to make sure we have a habitable planet for generations to come.
Great. Okay. Jeff, what do you think? That all went pretty well, huh?
Yeah, I think it was. I'd like to thank for all the candidates that have stuck around to appreciate the fact that they've dedicated time to meet with us today, and we look forward to coming supporting all of our candidates, ones that we've endorsed and choose to endorse as we get into the general election. And certainly, I've learned a lot about the candidates that we have out there and our current representatives. And I'm looking forward to taking what I've learned here and working to advocate on issues as we head into this next legislative session.
Okay, great. Thanks again to everyone, candidates and all, for being with us tonight. Any further discussion can happen on ECC's Facebook page, which you can find on Facebook. And we will be sending a link to the video of this event out in our newsletter and also posting it on Facebook soon. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all, everyone. It's been a great evening.